Right here in these posh homes and subdivisions, there's a lot of drugs in those medicine cabinets, and unfortunately they find themselves in the wrong hands. It's areas like this that our new addicts are coming from.
Tragically, there are many stories of young people getting addicted to pain medications all across America. For Brandon DeHaven, it all started at the doctor's office.
When he broke his arm at 13, they gave him Vicodin. We didn't think of it as being an addictive drug.
Brandon's addiction to the pills quickly took hold, and by the time he was 18, Brandon was a full-blown OxyContin addict.
He became very thin. He had no interest in eating. He was very removed. He wanted nothing to do with family. Once they're a prescription drug addict, it's just maintaining and keeping their body from crashing.
After a failed intervention, Bradley's level of frustration with Brandon's selfish drug-related behavior finally reached a boiling point.
We found one of the telltale signs that he'd been smoking Oxy, and that was little pieces of foil with black lines across them. So shortly after that, during the intervention, I punched him in the face. I just wanted him to feel, because we were hurting.
Later, while trying to quit cold turkey with only his family's help, did Brandon show the extreme signs of an OxyContin withdrawal.
How's that OxyContin working out for you? My son looked like an animal on the floor that you should put out of his misery. He was convulsing, his body was crawling, his feet were crawling on the wall. He didn't even know they were moving.
It was horrible. It was just, he was balled up and crying out in pain. There was nothing I could do to help him.
Things went from bad to worse for Brandon as he was arrested for dealing drugs. Facing up to 5 years in prison, if convicted, the only out was if he cooperated with a police sting to catch a big drug dealer in their area.
Unfortunately for Brandon, in his current state, in his addiction, he wasn't very reliable. And so Brad came to me and asked me if he could assist with trying to get his son out of trouble. I know that, at Brad's situation, he truly loved and cared about Brandon, and thought that that was the best thing for his son at that point in time.
I cut a deal with the police that if I could deliver this drug dealer that they wanted, that it would count for my son's bust, and that he could go to rehab for a treatment of a disease instead of prison.
After making contact with the dealer and his girlfriend and agreeing to sell them his supposed leftover supply of OxyContin, the plan seemed to work.
And once he confirmed that they were going to meet up with him, he called me and said, "Hey, I've got a date set. They want to do a drug deal with me."
The police wired Bradley and had more than a dozen undercover officers close by. What unnerved him were the police instructions in case of an altercation.
At one point, they told me that I was supposed to put my head between the steering wheel and the door on the driver's side if a gun was pulled.
Now, Brad was in danger. Could he have been killed?
I think with every operation, undercover operation, there's always the propensity for violence to occur, especially in a situation where you're dealing with people that are selling drugs.
After a couple of unsuccessful attempts where the dealers didn't show up, a meeting was arranged for a deal to go down in a parking lot a mere mile from his home.
It almost haunted me as I sat there. I thought that about my son that was away at college. I thought about my son who was an addict. If I was killed that day, how would he carry that burden? He'd never get better. And my wife would be without a husband, and the list goes on of the scenarios that play out in your mind when you're undercover.
What were those hours like?
It was horrible. I'm just waiting and waiting for any kind of word from him, and it just went on for hours.
Later that evening, Bradley was finally able to get the dealer's girlfriend to meet him.
She was no more than 6 or 8 feet in front of the hood of the car, and she picked up her cell phone, and then she just looked at me like I was the devil. She just started backing up. So her boyfriend, who I hadn't seen with her, was obviously parking the car somewhere and ran into some marked police or something.
Both suspects started to run, but were quickly apprehended by a team of undercover officers.
Eventually, the lead narcotics officer pulled up, the one that had been working closely with me, and said, "We got him. We got a full statement out of both of them." So he said, "Your son can go to rehab."
After the elation of the drug bust, Bradley could not anticipate what was about to happen.
I grabbed a drug test and I went in his room and I said, "Get up and drug test for me." And that was the next morning after the bust. And he tested positive. So that broke my heart. I mean, I realized then a very important thing, and this is something I share with a lot of parents. If everything you're doing is too much and it's not enough at the same time, then you're enabling. And nothing's gonna change.